Welcome to This Explainer. I want you to take a second and think back, way back, to a moment in your childhood when a simple 100 rupee note felt like an absolute fortune. I mean, it was literally a ticket to endless possibilities, right? Now look at your life today. It's the exact same piece of paper, but honestly, even 10 times that amount often feels suddenly inadequate. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. The math of money is completely static. 100 is always 100. But the psychology of money, that is incredibly fluid. Today, we're diving into a core premise. Money itself doesn't change, but our emotional relationship with it radically evolves as we age. Okay, let's dive into this chronological roadmap. We're going to start with childhood, the invisible money, move into the teenage years, the illusion of freedom, examine the first salary, the power and the trap, navigate the mid-20s to 30s, the weight of responsibility, transition into the 30s and 40s, valuing time over money, and finally arrive at our later years, the quest for security. So, why exactly does money feel so different as we grow older? It's a question that rarely gets asked, yet it defines so much of our daily existence. It's the exact same currency flowing through our hands, yet your emotional reaction to your bank balance today is fundamentally different than it was 5, 10, or even 20 years ago. Before we step into the very first stage of this life cycle, it really helps to just pause for a second and consider how profoundly that psychological definition has already shifted in your own life. Looking at this, on the left, we have childhood. 100 rupees felt massive, exciting, and practically limitless. You felt like you could buy the world. On the right, adulthood, where even 1,000 rupees can feel vanishingly small. Now, obviously, economic inflation is a factor here, for sure, but the deeper, heavier reality is psychological inflation. As adults, the sheer volume of obligations, the utility bills, the rent, the taxes, the insurance premiums, it literally dilutes the actual cash value in our minds. It creates this constant underlying sense of scarcity that just doesn't exist when we're young. The innocent magic of childhood currency is entirely replaced by the complex, and sometimes stressful, math of adult survival.
Let's look at stage 1. Childhood, the invisible money.
In childhood, money literally feels invisible and magical. I mean, the heavy lifting of survival, making sure the lights stay on and the pantry is actually full, is entirely handled by the parents. Because basic survival is guaranteed, a kid's natural focus is purely on present enjoyment. The primary distractions here are toys, cartoons, games, and just instant happiness. There's an absolute lack of long-term thinking, which, hey, is perfectly natural. But beneath this carefree surface lies an absolutely crucial psychological reality. This is the hidden programming phase. Even though money seems invisible, a child is constantly observing. They watch how the adults in the house react to a sudden expense, how they argue over bills, or how they might use shopping as a stress relief. Without understanding any of the math, children are quietly downloading the financial psychology that they'll instinctually act out decades later. Moving on to stage 2, teenage years, the illusion of freedom. So, as pocket money starts trickling in and those very first online purchases are made, money undergoes a profound identity shift. It stops being just a tool for getting toys and becomes deeply, deeply tethered to personal identity and independence. The distractions during these years are incredibly potent. You've got the weight of social media pressure, the intense desire for expensive gadgets, fashion brands, and just this all-encompassing culture of comparison. Actually, it's super common during this phase to confuse spending with confidence, operating under the belief that wearing a specific brand literally buys you social status. Because of this, the teenage years are an absolutely critical window for learning budgeting and delayed gratification. If someone's self-worth remains tied to their spending during these formative years, well, it often evolves into a highly entrenched financial pattern that follows them straight into adulthood. And that brings us to stage 3, first salary, the power and the trap. Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer velocity of the trap. That first paycheck brings an immense, intoxicating rush of emotional excitement. There's the genuine joy of buying gifts for your parents and the sudden feeling of true financial power. You finally have your own money. But man, almost immediately, the reality of adult math hits. Taxes deduct a portion, rent claims another, and most dangerously, rapid lifestyle inflation takes hold. The traps are kind of subtle at first, but they're everywhere. Unnecessary subscriptions, upgrading to the absolute newest phone, constantly dining out. Then there's the insidious EMI culture, those equated monthly installments that make genuine luxury feel comfortably affordable. Without even realizing it, a lot of young professionals increase their lifestyle expenses way faster than they increase their financial wisdom, quietly trading their newfound power for a relentless cycle of debt. It's absolutely fascinating to observe this dynamic in action. On one side, a growing income feels incredibly powerful and freeing. It feels like you're finally making it. But on the right, we see the harsh reality. financial discipline quietly becomes vastly more important than the income itself. Simply earning a higher salary is rarely enough to build sustainable wealth. I mean, if that first salary isn't aggressively paired with the discipline to build emergency funds and invest systematically, maybe through SIPs, then that high income becomes incredibly fragile. It's essentially an illusion of wealth. Without the shields of discipline, you basically just become a highly paid conduit for money to pass through on its way to other businesses.
Next up, Stage 4, mid-20s to 30s, the weight of responsibility. In this era, the honeymoon phase of earning officially ends, and career pressures really begin to peak. The financial expectations of marriage, family planning, and home buying often arrive all at once. Like a ton of bricks, money transforms from a source of weekend excitement into a desperate, grounding need for long-term stability, and the internal psychological conflict of this decade is uniquely heavy. Young adults frequently find themselves torn between the lingering desire for the personal freedom of their early 20s and the biological and societal push to anchor down and manage mounting responsibilities. Compounding all of this is the massive pressure to appear successful online. Constantly comparing salaries and lifestyle milestones with peers. It's a highly stressful era where the temptation is incredibly strong to project an image of having everything figured out, even if the bank account tells a vastly different story. Consider this. At some point, money stops being about impressing people and starts becoming about protecting peace. This exact pivot point defines true financial maturity. It's this massive psychological shift from seeking external validation, buying things just for the applause of others, to seeking internal security. When the realization sets in that a quiet, well-funded emergency account brings infinitely more lasting joy than a luxury vehicle that requires heavy financing, well, that's when your relationship with money has fundamentally matured. Moving to Stage 5, 30s to 40s, valuing time over money. And this brilliantly illustrates the paradigm shift that happens here. In your 20s, the chase is often all about speed, luxury, brands, and weekend excitement. But by your 40s, the hourglass and the shield take precedence. The pursuit entirely shifts toward chasing free time, schedule flexibility, and familial safety. The responsibilities of raising children, caring for aging parents, and genuine career fatigue drastically alter what you value most. The realization hits hard that a high income alone absolutely does not guarantee happiness, especially if generating that income costs you all your available free time and your physical health. It's a profound recalibration of what actually constitutes a rich life. The distractions in this mature phase evolve away from gadgets or fashion. They become systemic and deeply ingrained. We're talking about overworking, navigating severe career burnout, neglecting physical health, and the exhausting treadmill of trying to catch up to the perceived success of peers. Surviving this high-pressure decade often demands a massive shift in priorities. Protecting your physical health and maintaining strict investing discipline aren't just good habits anymore. They literally become the required mechanisms to ensure you actually get to enjoy the wealth you're building. Health and time become the ultimate currencies, far outpacing whatever numbers are sitting on a bank statement. Which brings us to Stage 6, later years, the quest for security. At this stage, any remaining desire for societal status is largely stripped away by the undeniable realities of aging. The emotional priorities become incredibly profound and deeply personal. We're talking dignity, true financial independence, medical safety, and absolute peace of mind. The most agonizing distractions here aren't external billboards or social media trends anymore. They're entirely internal. It's the heavy reflection on delayed investments or the sudden realization of having overspent on trivial things earlier in life. The medical safety net becomes the ultimate luxury, completely replacing the desire for a flashy car or a larger house. Really, this stage serves as the ultimate proof of why long-term compounding is so absolutely vital. The money you saved with discipline in your 20s isn't just cash anymore. It is the literal foundation of your dignity in your 60s. Finally, let's look at the culmination of this timeline. A healthy money relationship. What becomes incredibly clear through this journey is that the tornado of temporary distractions is a lifelong constant. Distractions never actually disappear, right? They just change form across the decades. A 10-year-old's toy naturally becomes a 20-year-old's smartphone, which eventually evolves into a 30-year-old's luxury car. On the left, we see these fleeting pursuits, but on the right, we have true financial maturity. Maturity is not about asceticism or denying yourself everything. Rather, it's the learned ability to spot the difference between temporary excitement and the deliberate pursuit of real flexibility, having options, and securing lasting peace. So the crucial point is really clear when looking at the entire progression.
At age 10, money is invisible, handled entirely by others. By 16, it represents the illusion of freedom. At 24, with that first salary, it feels like pure, intoxicating power. But by 35, the weight of the world makes money synonymous with peace. And finally, at 60, money is simply security and dignity. Our core emotional definition of currency is constantly, relentlessly evolving as we navigate entirely new chapters of survival and understanding. We'll leave you with this final, provocative thought from the explainer. Financial wisdom is not only about managing money, it is also about understanding yourself. If the emotional voids being filled at each stage of life are not understood, no amount of budgeting or investing will ever feel like enough. True wealth is built when your financial decisions finally align with your deepest, most mature psychological needs. As you reflect on this timeline we just went through, consider your own stage right now. What is money truly representing for you today?